Having trouble with Wisconsin's eviction process? Let's sort it out. Welcome back, Loopers. It's Galena with DoorLoop. Today, we will be diving into the eviction process in Wisconsin. It may vary from county to county, but for the most part, it's the same general eviction process. Fill out the forms, serve the documents, attend the trial, and wait for judgment. This video is a summary for landlords to refer to when evicting tenants in compliance with Wisconsin state law. Remember, if you have any specific questions, don't hesitate to contact an attorney. Get our guide to eviction laws on the go from DoorLoop's Landlord's Guide series. Click the link in the description. Now, let's dive in. Eviction reasons. Violation of the lease or rental agreement. A lease agreement can vary between tenants. Landlords and tenants are required to uphold the terms of the lease agreement at all times. Lease violations include not paying rent on time, smoking in non-smoking areas, too many people are living inside the rental unit, and housing a pet in a pet-free rental unit or rental premises, etc. The landlord can evict the tenant for the lease violation, but the notice provided depends on the violation the tenant committed. For month-to-month tenants, a landlord has legal cause to decide that they do not wish to let the tenant correct their violation or pay overdue rent. In this case, the landlord must provide the renters with a 14-day notice to comply instead of a 5-day notice to comply. In Wisconsin, landlords must give the tenant a 5-day notice to pay or comply, or a 30-day notice to comply if they want to grant the tenant the opportunity to fix their violation or pay rent on time, and if the tenant is a week-to-week tenant, or a tenant has a tenancy of more than 1 year. Landlords can continue filing for an eviction lawsuit if tenants fail to resolve the issue and remains inside the rental property after the given notice period, causing imminent harm. According to Wisconsin state law, a tenant who is deemed a threat against other tenants or a relative to a tenant, then the landlord must give the tenant a notice called a 5-day notice to quit. This 5-day notice allows the tenant 5 days to leave the property, or else they face an eviction process. Conducting illegal activity. If a tenant has engaged in illegal activity on the rental premises, the landlord must give them a written notice of 5 days to move out of the property. The violation extends to anyone residing with the tenant inside the rental unit. Examples of illegal activity include, but are not limited to, involvement in criminal activity, threatening the safety of other tenants and surrounding neighborhoods, and involvement in the creation, distribution, or consumption of a controlled substance. Tenants are not allowed to fix their violations. Should the tenant remain on the rental premises after their notice period ends, the landlord may continue filing for eviction process. Non-renewal of a lease after the end of the rental period. A Wisconsin eviction process does not allow a landlord to evict a tenant without good cause. As long as the tenant does not violate any rules, they can stay until their rental term ends. However, a tenant can be evicted if they stay in the property even a day after their lease term ends and they have not arranged for a renewal. This type of notice usually only applies if the landlord wants to end the tenant's lease. The required notice time given to a tenant depends on their tenancy type or lease term. Should the tenant remain in the rental premises even after their notice period ends, the landlord may continue to file for eviction proceedings to evict the tenant from the property. If you want your own Wisconsin lease agreement, click the link in the description to download your very own template. Filing a complaint. After the notice period, the landlord may file for an eviction order at small claims court or the Equal Rights Division. A successful eviction process relies on correct filings, so the landlord must file all of the forms correctly. Wisconsin filing costs range between $94.50 to $114.50, depending on the mode of filing. Steps in filing. Proceed to the Justice Court, Small Claims Court, or Equal Rights Division the rental property belongs to. Fill out the forms and pay the filing fees. Timeline. It takes between 5 to 30 days before the landlord can file a complaint. This depends on the notice given to the tenant. Notice to comply. Before filing for an eviction with the court, you need to issue the tenant a notice to comply. You can either download the free PDF or Word template or create your Wisconsin eviction notice from the link in the description using a step-by-step wizard that guides you through the entire process to make sure you are submitting the legally correct notice. Keep in mind, this step-by-step wizard will ask you to pay a small fee at the end. It's a small price to pay to ensure legal compliance and protection. The last thing you want to do is go to court only to find out you did the first process incorrectly. Serving the tenant. The summons and complaint must be served to the tenant. The landlord must not serve this document themselves. The document should contain information such as the date and time of the court trial. Wisconsin allows anyone who is a state resident and uninvolved in the case to serve the document. It has to be delivered at least 5 days before the eviction hearing is scheduled. How to serve documents to a tenant. The summons and its corresponding documents have to be served through one of the following methods. Personal service. The summons and complaint is served to the tenant in person. Substituted service. A copy of the summons and complaint is left at the tenant's place of residence or rental unit with someone who is at least 14 years old. Mailing service. The server mails the documents via certified mail. Publishing service. The server published the summons and complaint on the local newspaper. After serving the summons and complaint, the tenant is not required to file an answer with the court. They only have to appear at the initial hearing. Timeline. The summons and complaint must be served at least 5 days before an eviction hearing is scheduled. Asking for possession. Filing a motion to obtain judgment and get a judgment for possession. A landlord has to provide a strong argument backed up by solid evidence against their tenant to win. If the tenant fails to show up to the hearing, the landlord could win by default. Next procedure if the tenant disagreed and filed an answer. During the initial court hearing, the landlord has the opportunity to support their claim with evidence and show it to the judge. This includes, but is not limited by, the following: copy of the deed and lease or rental agreement, rent receipts, rent ledgers, bank statements, witness statements, and photo and video documentation of the violations committed by the tenant. An initial eviction hearing is scheduled within 25 days after the landlord filed the complaint. If the issue is not resolved during the initial hearing, it takes another 30 days for a judicial officer to issue a final decision. Getting possession. After the landlord wins a case and gets a writ of restitution. Once the landlord wins the case, and provided the tenant does not file for an appeal or reconsideration, the court will issue a writ of restitution immediately upon judgment passing in favor of the landlord. The writ of restitution is a court order which informs the tenant that they must move out of their housing on the property or else they will be forcibly evicted. Move out process. This final step in the eviction process allows a tenant to move out of their housing on the property. Wisconsin state law dictates that a tenant must vacate the property within 10 days upon receipt of the writ of restitution. In cases that will bring a tenant hardship, they may be granted a stay of execution for a maximum of 30 days. Only the appropriate law enforcement officials are allowed to forcibly evict a tenant from the property. Timeline. The writ of restitution is issued immediately, while the move-out period takes 10 to 30 days depending on whether the tenant was granted a stay of execution. Wisconsin eviction process timeline. On average, it takes about 2 to 4 months for a complete eviction process in Wisconsin. Showing evidence. How to keep good records. If the tenant disagrees with the eviction request and they reply to the court, it's important that you keep extremely good records of everything so you can provide proof to the judge and win your case. This part can make or break your entire eviction request in the event of a dispute. You can stay organized by keeping a physical paper trail. This gets very hard to search through, takes up a lot of storage space, and could get lost, damaged, stolen, or burnt in a fire. Scan documents. Scan every document into your computer. Backups. Store and back up every file using Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, or any other option that is easily searchable. PMS. Use a property management software to save everything from lease agreements, signed documents, violations, emails, notes, invoices, payments, reminders, maintenance requests, pictures, videos, and anything else that can possibly be useful in a court case. This is most useful when you keep all your documents stored away just in case any of them are needed. Evidence to show for not paying rent. If the tenant doesn't pay rent and they dispute that claim, it's important that you show the judge the following: your lease agreement, showing the terms of the agreement, when rent is due, and any penalties for the late payment. All payments, showing all previous payments, how they were normally made, check, credit card, ACH, etc., and what date they were normally paid on. Any payment returns. If their check bounced, their bank account had insufficient funds, or they did a chargeback dispute on their credit card, show this to the judge. Also show any fees your bank may have charged you and any penalties you are owed according to your lease agreement. All messages. If you sent your tenant automated or manual payment reminders by text, email, letter, or mail, it's essential to show this. While it's usually not needed, it's still good to show that they were aware of the situation and were given time to cure and make the payments. For this reason, it's always best to have everything physically written instead of face-to-face conversations. Evidence to show for lease violations. If you're evicting the tenant for lease violations, for example, noise complaints, unauthorized pets, or property damages, it's important to show proof from any of the following methods. Security cameras. If you have a surveillance system that can show them committing the crime or lease violation, it's safe to say you will generally win this dispute. Video. If you miss them in the act, the next best thing is to record a video with your phone of any damages or lease violation. Pictures. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, a picture could be worth thousands of dollars. Even if you take a video, it is essential to show the judge the photographs of the violations. Lease terms. Once again, show the court which terms they violated in their lease agreement. Don't worry if you don't have every single term spelled out in your rental agreement. If the violation is bad enough, it might not need to be written. As a good practice though, start adding all of the potential reasons to evict a tenant into your agreement. Before I go on to talk about self-help evictions, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing content. Self-help evictions. Examples of illegal self-help evictions include changing locks, taking the tenant's belongings, removing the front door, or turning off the heat or electricity. Many states specify how much money a tenant can sue for if the landlord has tried to illegally evict the tenant through some sort of self-help measure. Some state laws also provide for tenants' court costs and attorney's fees if the tenant successfully sues the landlord, or give the tenant the right to stay in the rental unit. And that's a wrap. Thank you for watching this video. For more valuable content, join our exclusive Facebook community with the link in the description. And to learn more, feel free to check out these videos. Thank you and have an amazing day.